I like to drive 55. Now there's many 55s out there. I've got an SMC Takamar 55. I have a 7 Artisans 55. One's 1.4, one's 1.8. But here, I've got a couple 55s that are a little more on the artsy-fartsy side.
I don't like the artsy-fartsy thing. I think I hated it.
And this is a Nikon. This is a Canon. This is a Nikon SC 55 1.2. This is a Canon SSC 55 1.2. So we're gonna do a little comparison and see which one drives faster, because I like to drive 55. Stay tuned and we'll get more into details in just a sec. Back at you.
Here I am, Vietnam. Rain is always coming down.
Camera talk with Dr. Scott. All right, this week we're going to do a little battle between Canon and Nikon. But it's not an overall battle, it's an individual battle, because an overall battle would be called a war. The war between Canon, the war between Nikon.
Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going on.
Of course, Canon being the name Canon, you would think they would win the war automatically, as a Canon is quite a vicious weapon. But today we're just looking at a specific category of lens. And what I've got here are some 55s. And both of these are vintage lenses. One is 55 1.2 from Nikon. It's the SC model. And the one I have in my right hand is a Canon 55mm SSC 1.2. And they're both pretty fantastic lenses, especially back in their day. They kind of led the pack.
That's when I fell for leader of the pack.
Of course, comparing to today's lenses, they're not going to stand up really in any kind of a neck-to-neck, face-to-face battle. But since they're both vintage lenses, they're both made roughly around the same time frame, they can go head-to-head, and we're going to see what the differences are between them. And of course, they are, especially wide aperture open at 1.2, they're going to be pretty shallow depth of field, and they're going to be pretty hard to really, get the best out of it at 1.2. So, but that's why anybody would buy a fast lens anyway at 1.2, is to shoot it wide open. So I'm going to show you some specifics about them, and a little bit of history. So pay attention to that. But there's some pretty fantastic lenses. Now I have some other 55s in my collection as well. I have a Pentax Takamar SMC. This is a 55 1.8, and it's a pretty super lens. I mean, this little lens here compared to these babies, this one blows these two out of the water as sharpness and contrast and everything else goes. This is an excellent little lens. The other one that I have in my collection is a 7 Artisans 55, and it is 1.4. So it's actually a little faster than my Takamar, but it's a modern lens, so it's not a vintage lens, but it is manual focus, and it's got a boatload of aperture blades compared to these. So the bokeh, the background, the quality of the background out of focus area is going to be affected by the larger number of blades, resulting in a rounder iris opening, the aperture opening. So I'm not really going to talk about these guys. That's in a separate ballpark altogether. But I just wanted to, compare. you know, these big bad babies. I mean, look at the glass in this thing. You know, there's a lot of glass in here. Same with the Canon, and they're quite hefty too. These are very, very heavy lenses. But they're cool. I mean, if you like artistic stuff, these are very cool lenses, and they're not expensive. Just picked this one up the other day for $130 US comparison. Of course, I bought them in Vietnamese dong, so 3 million Vietnamese dong sounds like a lot, yeah.
$1 million.
And this one here I got from Japan, a little pricier. This one was a couple $100, but still they're in tip-top condition. I mean, these are you know, 40 some odd year old lenses, and yet they feel and perform just like a brand new lens. So I'm going to do a comparison for you, and we're going to see who's going to win the battles of the 55. So which one do I want to look at first? Well, let's go with the Nikon since it's closest to me. So Nikon, or Nikkor, which is they call their top of the line lenses. This is the Auto SC, which means it's S is for 7 elements. That's what the designation is, and the C is for coated. So it's got some special coating on there compared to, you know, when this lens first came out, it was like 1965. You know, but when they you know, put some coating on it and, you know, tried to deal with the chromatic aberrations and whatnot. This particular version of the lens was produced between 1972 and 1974. I haven't looked up exactly where my serial number lies, but it's within that range anyway of those 2 years. You know, again, it's some interesting glass, opening it up to all the way to 1.2. You know, there's a lot of serious glass through here. It's very, very heavy, very weighty. I think the Canon's a little heavier on that regard. But, you know, as my usual test, I'm going to take a photo of my Canon M50, which is doing the recording of the film at this particular moment. And, you know, I'm just going to show you what that is, and then later I'm going to show you some results of using this lens with my son. I like to use my actually tomorrow he'll be 15 weeks. You know, he's only this big, you know. So he does a lot of laying on his back. So it's a perfect target for kids, because, you know, as kids run around everywhere, it's difficult to get them into a position where you could take some good photographs. But for a baby laying on his back, hey, they're just laying, not doing anything anyway. So the kind of an ideal portrait subject. So anyway, let me zoom in here, and of course I've got my peaking, my focus peaking on here, so I can zoom in on the tip of the lens itself, which is the kit lens, and take a picture of that. All right, so that's the Nikon, and again, it's a pretty lens.
I feel pretty, oh so pretty.
You know, the glass, and for anybody who loves lenses, you know, the glass again is superb. I mean, it's hard not to look at it when you're holding it in your hand, looking through there. It's big. I mean, compared to, I already put away my my other two 55s, but compared to those, they're, you know, half the size.
That's what she said.
You know, no better word than beautiful. I mean, this is a beautiful artistic piece of glass. It's something you can put on display somewhere. So again, with such a shallow depth of field, though, at 1.2, you're going to be pretty limited as to what you can, you know, what you can do with these particular lenses. You know, and again, back in the day, they were the leaders of their field. They were, I mean, this was the fastest lens that Nikon ever produced. you know, so it's kind of an honor to have one of these in my collection. Now next is my Canon 55, and this is again a 1.2, and it's an SSC, which again is for super coating. There's a super coating on there, and it's a marketing thing, obviously. It just has better coating than its predecessors. And of course the coating again cuts down on the chromatic aberrations and whatnot, and, you know, boosts contrast and all these other things. But you know, this is again a beautiful lens.
You are so beautiful.
I mean, it's a huge piece of glass in there. Actually, even the back element is huge.
What he said.
But you know, it goes from f1.2 up to f16, which is the same with my Nikon, and it's you know, both of these made in Japan, and they are really excellent construction and whatnot. There's another version of the 55. It's an aspherical lens element added to it, and it's more expensive than this one. But it's, you know, rumored to be resulting in better image quality anyway. But I'm happy enough with my own 55 here, and I would highly recommend these for anybody who likes that particular vintage look and the particular way that these can blow out a background. You know, the bokeh on these is pretty cool. Anyway, let me give you a sample of that by putting on my Sony A7R2. Hold on, let me find my red spot here. Now this particular lens is kind of in the same range. Like I said, this was introduced in 1971. Or no, sorry, between 1972 and 74, so in a 2-year range, this was produced, and then they made further ones, newer ones, all the way up to 1978. Now, Canon here, this one was introduced in 1971, so it's in the same age group as this particular lens. So as I did with this, let me get you a picture looking at my Canon M50, just to show you what it's looking like coming straight out of the camera here. I focus in on the end of the lens, and again, this is wide open at 1.2, so it's going to show you you know, its capabilities in that particular range. And as I stated already, I'm going to, you know, use this lens as well as my Nikon here to photograph my son, and, you know, show you some other pictures that I had taken with him too, to give a comparison, so that we can have a true battle of the 55s. Because as I already stated, I like to drive 55. And these are some pretty cool lenses. So you know, in the hopes of trimming my videos down a little bit, hopefully I can get this video down to just talking about these for a bit and giving you some samples of what they look like.
Is this the real life, or is this just fantasy? Caught in a landslide, no escape from reality. Open your eyes, look up to the sky and see. I'm just a poor boy, I need no sympathy, 'cause I'm easy come, easy go, high, little low.
This was Dr. Scott. This is Modesty Photography. Remember, subscribe please try to help support my channel. Like the videos. That also, YouTube likes that kind of stuff, just like Facebook. So hit that like button. Leave a comment below, which is great because, you know, hopefully you have a question or, you know, a comment on some sort that I can engage with you, the audience, you know, because it's the reason why I'm doing this. You know, as you already know, if you've watched my introduction video, I'm a university teacher, so you know, the whole purpose of me doing this is try to, you know, teach you or introduce you to maybe some element of photography you may not have been privy to in the first place, or may have had an interest in but nobody's ever talked about.
Here's a useful lesson for you. Give up. Just quit. Because in this life, you can't win. Yeah, you can try. But in the end, you're just going to lose big time because the world is run by the man.
So today's episode is just about the 55s. And then I'm going to go through, as you can see behind me, I have quite a number of vintage lenses that I you know, is my focus. You know, I shoot on an M50, Canon M50. I shoot on Sony A7R2. I also have another A7 up there. I have a GoPro that I also use on the side. You know, as well as cell phones, just like everybody else using cell phones these days for photography. So you know, I kind of try to touch on a lot of different things. So that's the whole purpose of Modesty Photography, is saving you money, because photography is a very expensive you know, hobby, especially for those in the professional end of things. You know, spending thousands of dollars on not only the body of the camera, but even lenses themselves can be super expensive. And myself, I try to avoid that because I have better things to do with my money than spend them on lenses. So, you know, again, if I can get a real nice piece of glass like this for $130, I'd much rather take that $1,000 or more that you can buy for a modern lens and buy myself a handful of these kinds of lenses that I can utilize on my mirrorless camera. So anyway, thanks for dropping by. Hope you have a great week. Hope you have a great weekend coming up. And I look forward to seeing you in our next video. So thank you for your support. Remember, subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. And you belong here. That's where you belong, is at Modesty Photography, Camera Talk with Dr. Scott. I will see you later. Take care.
Here I am.